Hello lovely people, in today's video I'm going to run you through how to tackle Red Bull Timelapse. For those of you who don't know, Red Bull Timelapse is the world's longest one-day race. Teams of 4 are challenged to take on the furthest distance they can do in 25 hours. If you want to find some more information, I've left a link down in the description below, but hopefully this video will tell you everything you need to know. The event is 25 hours long because you gain an extra hour due to the clocks going back. Normally it takes place at Windsor Great Park every year, but this year everyone's going to be hitting the roads or using their turbo trainers indoors and collectively logging their miles on STRAVA. Only one rider can contribute to their team's collective mileage at any one time, challenging both their determination and strategy as day turns into night. But this is a Red Bull event, so obviously there's a twist. At 2 o'clock BST, riders will benefit from a power hour. In the power hour, all miles ridden count for double. So this is the perfect opportunity for teams to challenge for their final position in the event. I competed in the event last year, so I thought I would take this opportunity to share with you my strategies and tips for taking on the event again this year. Last year I took on the event with the Canyon team, which consisted of 2 Canyon staff members, Tom and Adam, my fiance / pro cyclist Jacob, and myself. Our strategy was to get Jacob to do the power hour to maximise our chance to increase the distance, and for all of us to try longer turns of around 3 hours so that there would be less changes. Jacob and Tom were our 2 strongest members, so they'd take up the slack if anyone needed to take a shorter turn. I was really nervous last year, to be honest, about taking on Timelapse because I'd never done any sort of endurance cycling event before. I knew I could in theory ride that distance, but I was worried about the multiple stints, the weather, and how this would all take a toll on my body. In the end, we actually changed our strategy quite dramatically. This was due to a number of things. First off was the weather. It started hammering it down the moment the race started, and in the end it wasn't possible to stay out as long as we had hoped because everyone was struggling with the cold. Everyone stuck with the longer turns initially, but as the day went on, everyone's turns got shorter and shorter. We ended up finding that around 2 hours seemed to work the best. We also had to adapt due to fatigue, and in one instance because someone's light ran out. The thing is with Red Bull Timelapse, you have to be prepared for the unexpected, because it will happen. You have 25 hours for something to go wrong, and be prepared to adapt. Another thing I would change is I would make sure I brought every single item of kit I had. Because we ended up doing shorter turns, we went through kit so much quicker, and no one wants to put on wet kit. No, it's just horrible. If you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to hit the like button. It helps this channel a lot, and subscribe for more cycling content. Back to the video. When it comes to ride strategy, you need to make sure that you're playing to everyone's strengths. Each rider on your team is going to be very different and have their own strengths and weaknesses. So you've got to make sure that each team member is happy with the length of the turn that they're going to be doing. I would recommend the strongest rider doing the power hour, just to give you the best chance of increasing your distance. We found in the end that around 2 hour turns worked best for us. This is because of the endurance factor of the event. If you have shorter turns, the temptation is to go harder than you should, but you have to communicate with your team and work out the best thing for you. If someone on your team is struggling, you're going to need to be on hand to make sure you can go in a bit earlier, or perhaps stay out on your turn a bit longer. Your strategy is going to need to be really flexible because of punctures, weather, or just fatigue. As long as you communicate with each other, you're going to be on track for a great race. That brings me on to nutrition. Making sure you're eating and drinking the right things throughout your race can make or break your day, especially in an event like Red Bull Timelapse. This is a race of attrition and nutrition. Nutrition strategy for an endurance race like Red Bull Timelapse starts way before you even get to the start line. Having a carb-heavy dinner the night before and making sure you're properly hydrated is going to make all the difference when it comes to race day. It's worth mentioning too that you shouldn't be trying out any new strategies when it comes to nutrition on race day. Make sure that you've tried all the food and drink that you're going to take on race day and that your body is completely used to it. On race day, I would have a carb-heavy breakfast about 3 hours before the start, and then around an hour to go I would have a light snack, for example some jam on toast or maybe some bananas, just to make sure that I am fully topped up and ready to go. It's really important to keep your fuel high, especially during an endurance event, and the fact that this is in winter as well. Be sure to bring lots of snacks and get food in little and often. Once you're riding, depending on your riding intensity and your size, you should be taking on board anywhere from 60 to 120 grams of carbs per hour. Just to put that in context, a standard banana is around 15 to 20 grams of carbs, so you're looking at 3 to 4 bananas an hour. You can, however, get away with slightly less than this if you're doing shorter turns, but you need to be super careful and make sure the moment you finish your turn, you are topping up afterwards. It's really, really important to stick to your nutrition strategy, especially for an event like this. Do not wait until you are hungry, until you are thirsty. It will be too late. It will be too late. That's it. Your race is over. Don't do it. I'm telling you. Plan your food and drink strategy and stick to it religiously. Another big tip is to eat real food. If you go for gels and bars throughout the whole day, your stomach is not going to make it. You can have gels and bars, but what I would say is the majority of your food should be real. So sandwiches, rice cakes or fruit are all great options. For hydration, it's important that you're getting on board enough liquids so that you can make use of all those carbs that you're taking on board. For me, I find actually the hydration part of Red Bull Timelapse the hardest, just because it's so cold and it's easy to forget that you need to drink. I also add in electrolyte tabs to my water. This just means that I'm going to retain as much of that water as possible. Another thing is that I use caffeine as part of my race strategy. Sports nutritionist Will Girling advises the following for caffeine during Red Bull Timelapse. Caffeine is one of the more proven supplements out there, and it's shown to boost your performance. It reduces your perceived exertion and improves your pain threshold. The difference between having a coffee and having a performance-enhancing amount of caffeine is different though. The amount that medically enhances performance is 3 to 6 milligrams per kilo of body weight. An espresso shot, for example, has roughly 75 milligrams. It takes about an hour to get into your blood, and its effect will last between 4 to 6 hours from ingestion. After your first dose, take another intake of caffeine around midway through the race of 75 to 100 milligrams. That's going to maintain the performance enhancing amount. And with 77.4 milligrams of caffeine in a standard sized can of Red Bull, it could be just the caffeine boost you need. I also have 5 caffeine tips for you from the Red Bull elite athletes such as Lucy Charles-Barkley and Tom Pidcock. Number 1. Tom Pidcock has a Red Bull around 45 minutes before the start of his races. He also makes sure that whenever he has a Red Bull, he's taking water alongside it. And that's due to the fact that caffeine actually dehydrates you. Tip number 2, you actually need 6 hours to get caffeine out of your system. So that's something to bear in mind when you're taking on an event like Red Bull Timelapse. But it really depends on the person. Some people can have an espresso right before bed and fall straight asleep. But sadly, that's not me. So I have to make sure that if I want to sleep, I'm thinking about when I actually have my caffeine. Tip number 3 is that I would recommend taking the standard Red Bull rather than the sugar-free version for time-lapse and other sporting events. This is because the standard Red Bull has 27 grams of glucose, which is equivalent to most sports gels and bars that you can get over the counter. This is going to mean that you're going to have more energy to put into your race. Tip number 4 is that pro Ironman triathlete Lucy Charles-Barkley has a Red Bull mixed in with water for her final leg of the triathlon, which is the run leg. This is something that I'm definitely going to be trying out to get me through the final stages of this year's time lapse. Tip number 5, please do remember that if you're going to try a caffeine strategy, make sure to try it out before race day. If you've never had a Red Bull before and you take 5 Red Bulls, it's not going to be good for you. So be sure to test out whatever strategy you're using before you get to race day. Recovery is also really key at an event like this. I'm making sure that I'm getting some sort of protein bar or snack after every one of my stints. My goal throughout time lapse is to get protein into my system around every 3 to 4 hours. I'm doing that either through a shake, through bars, or just through my normal food. After the event's done, I personally have a Maxi Muscle protein shake. My favourite is the cookies and cream. Oh my god, it's so good. And then after my final stint, I will have a well-balanced meal within 1 hour of finishing. Sleeping is pretty important, we all know that. So that brings me on to sleep strategy. Trying to get sleep during Red Bull Timelapse is very, very important, and it's gonna help you get the most out of your performance. Last year, I only managed to sleep around 2 hours, and I found that breaking it into kind of 20-30 minute naps worked best for me personally. Jake, on the other hand, slept for about 3 to 4 hours, which is absolutely insane. I have no idea how he managed that. He basically finished the effort, ate, and then went straight to sleep. Everyone is different, but I would recommend trying to get in as much sleep as you can, because it's going to mean that you're going to be able to get a bit more out of yourself when it comes to riding your bike. Something that might seem obvious is preparing your equipment beforehand. You're going to want to make sure that your bike is fully ready to go, maybe get a service beforehand, and bring any tools and spares that you're going to need for your bike. You're also going to need fully charged lights and spares. The chances are that your lights aren't going to go the full distance throughout the night, so always bring some spares with you. I'd also recommend bringing battery packs so that you can charge your bike computer and anything else that is likely to run out of battery. It's also important to bring your helmet, your cycling shoes, and lots of cycling kit. I recommend bringing basically everything you have. The more spares, the better. I really wish I brought a second pair of cycling shoes, because I would have really appreciated having some dry feet for the final few stints. You're also going to need to bring all the layers. Last year, my Red Bull Timelapse dry robe absolutely saved my life. So hats, gloves, base layers, bring it all. Other things that might seem obvious are camping chairs, somewhere to keep warm, and wellies. Last year we rocked up in some Vans and Jake had some white trainers on. It was a massive mistake. The final thing, and perhaps my favourite thing, is food. I touched on the kind of things you can bring to support your nutrition whilst doing this event, but honestly you can't have too much with you. Having something tasty is going to boost your morale and your performance. I had everything from overnight oats to sandwiches to a gas cooker so that I could make myself a hot cup of tea. So that's everything for today's video. Do let me know in the comments down below whether you're going to be taking on Red Bull Timelapse too, and if you have any extra tips or tricks, leave them down below. If you want to get involved in this year's event, I've also left the link in the description if you want to register. And if you want some more tips and tricks, I have written some words over at redbull.com, so be sure to check that out as well. Thank you as always for tuning in. I'm going to be bringing you the video from Red Bull Timelapse when I take it on next week, so if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing, press the bell notification so you don't miss out on any of my videos. Thanks so much, keep risking it for a biscuit as always, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya! If you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more cycling channel. Help me.